Shalom. First off, and give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Bachar Kodash. Giving double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who teach the truth of these scriptures, and giving peace, love, and salutations unto those of you a part of those 12 tribes of Israel, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans who are striving for salvation, striving to see a downfall of this kingdom, and the men, women, and children that follow in truth and in sincerity. So this lesson that I wanted to get into is going to be talking about what a covenant is, and giving understanding on what it is and giving different examples to correlate. And so we're going to get right into it. So we're going to first get into what a covenant is defined as. This isn't in the blue letter. This is just a search definition. We will get the blue letter definition later on. But it says covenant can be defined as follows. A covenant is a chosen relationship in which two parties make binding promises to each other. And so it's as simple as that. It's a promise. It's an agreement. If you go into the etymology of the word covenant, it says mutual compact to do or not do something. A contract, agreement, pact, promise. Agree, meet, come together, unite. So it was an agreement. It was a promise. And one of the first covenants that you can find in the scriptures was a promise that the Most High made with all flesh in Genesis chapter 9, because this was after the Most High destroyed the earth with that great flood that he allowed Noah and his family to be saved from, and all the animals that were saved on the ark. After that great flood where it destroyed the earth, this is what it says. This is Genesis chapter 9 and verse 11. It says, "And I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off anymore by the waters of a flood. Neither shall there anymore be a flood to destroy the earth. And the Most High said, This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations." And that's the thing about covenants, because they are, it says right here that it was for perpetual generations. And that's, the rules on this covenant, that we're perpetual. It means long duration, antiquity, futurity, forever, everlasting, evermore. It says forever, always, continuous existence. And so how do we know that this covenant there's something that is correlated with this covenant, that how we know? We can look into the sky today and see the token of this covenant, because in verse 13 it says, "I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth." And what's that bow talking about? Well, that's talking about what people call in modern times a rainbow. That same bow that's flipped today and used for this homosexuality and used for the LGBTQ community. That was originally a covenant made with the Most High and man, made with the Most High in flesh, to show that forever and ever he wouldn't destroy the earth by water anymore. And that doesn't mean that there aren't water-based natural disasters, because you have hurricanes, you have floods, tsunamis. But this covenant was that he wouldn't destroy the entire earth no more. And so that's why after it rains, you see that rainbow in the sky, because that's the Most High showing that token. Hey, I'm not going to destroy the earth by that rain no more. I'm not going to destroy the earth by that water. And so that's one of those covenants or promises that were made. And so that covenant, you could see it as more of just a promise that the Most High made to man. But you have covenants that were more agreements, where it was something that the Most High would promise, but the Most High would have man do as well to be aligned with that covenant. So for example, we'll get Genesis chapter 17 and verse 2, where the Most High is making his covenant with Abraham. And it says, "And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and the Most High talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. And so that's that covenant that was given unto Abraham, because Abraham is that father, and then he had Isaac. Then Isaac had Jacob, who was later Israel. And today you have the 12 tribes of Israel, who are the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. We are a very insurmountable nation. We are an innumerable multitude. And so that covenant has taken place today. But you read on in verse 5, it says, neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be called Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee. So we'll read on to get to the point that I want to get to. Okay, so right here, this is what you could call the token of this covenant, or not call, because that's what the Most High called it. And we're about to read that and get that, but this covenant is more of an agreement, because it's not just the Most High promising something. The Most High not only promised this in this covenant, but if we read here, let's give context. It says, and the Most High said unto Abraham, thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised, and ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. And so that circumcision, it was a physical sign that you were under that covenant. It was basically, you're literally signing off to that covenant. And so that was that physical token, where it wasn't just the Most High promising something and putting that token out there. And this covenant, it was a thing where man had a part to play in it as well, because we had to do that circumcision. That was a process that we had to do, which is why circumcision is so important among the nation of Israel, because it shows that covenant, that pact made between us and the Most High all the way back into the times of Abraham. And so that's why if you go back to the etymology of the word covenant, it says in law a promise made by deed, and so that's exactly that example in Genesis 17, where it's that pact, it's that promise made by deed. And so we'll get one more example that we'll get into before closing out the lesson. 1 second. Now, the Most High made a covenant with the nation of Israel that was also one of those perpetual covenants, but this one was especially a covenant that was more of a man had a part to play in it as well. The nation of Israel had a very essential role in this covenant, because not only was this covenant, in an agreement, it was one of those, like you go to the etymology, a promise made by deed. Us and the Most High were making a promise to each other, and we're gonna get that scripture now. So this is Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 9. So it says, "And the Lord Yahweh thy power will make thee plenteous." Here, let's actually start at. Or you know what? We'll get this whole rip so we can get the understanding. So this is Deuteronomy 30 and 1. It says, "And it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whither the Lord Yahweh thy power hath driven thee." And before this chapter, the Most High had given the laws unto the nation of Israel, and he basically said, if you keep my laws, then you're going to be blessed. If you don't keep my laws, then you're going to be cursed, which is already right there that sign of agreement, because the nation of Israel said, these things will we do. And so with that being said, that was that promise, that pact that was made. And so we read on, it says, and shalt return unto the Lord Yahweh thy power, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that then the Lord Yahweh thy power will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord Yahweh thy power hath scattered thee. So here we'll read a little bit down. So we're starting verse 8. It says, and thou shalt return and obey the voice of the Lord Yahweh, and do all his commandments which I command thee this day. And the Lord Yahweh thy power will make thee plenteous in every work of thine hand, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy land for good. For the Lord Yahweh will again rejoice over thee for good, as he rejoiced over thy fathers. If thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord Yahweh thy power, to keep his commandments and his statutes which are written in this book of the law, and if thou turn unto the Lord Yahweh thy power with all thine heart and with all thy soul. So that's the only way that this covenant would be that covenant where the Most High will bless us, that covenant where the Most High would basically give us these things that he's talked about, you know, making us plenteous, you know, putting us in a good estate, putting the nation of Israel in a good state of rule. All of these blessings that it speaks of, that you can get from here, let me make sure, that you can get from Deuteronomy 28, the blessings that it speaks of in there, that's all based off of that covenant, where in verse 10 it says that the only reason that you're going to get that covenant is if you turn to the book of the law, if you keep it with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your being, that your mind is focused on them. And so the way that we know that this covenant was valid is because you see in the Old Testament time and time again where the nation of Israel was given into the hands of heathen and put into captivity and put into a low estate over and over because of us going off from that covenant, because of us not following the laws as a nation at that time, you know, and because we weren't upholding our part of the promise. Like we had said, the nation of Israel said, we will do these things, we will keep these commandments, and we weren't. And so we weren't upholding our side. What were we doing? We were taking part in other gods. You know, we weren't following the laws. We were basically going against what our side of the promise was. And so you see time and time again throughout, you know, the Old Testament, we were under the hand of the Babylonians. You know, we were in captivity. We got put into a low estate. And so that's how you know that's how you know that, you know, one, that covenant was true, you know, it came to pass, and two, that covenant was also perpetual, you know, and that covenant was renewed with Yahweh Shai, but we won't get into that because that's like a deeper dive into it. You know, I just want to give a few examples on a covenant, give the understanding on what it is based off these couple examples, you know, early in the scriptures. But, you know, we'll get Psalms 103 and 17 real fast. It says, but the mercy of the Lord Yahweh is from everlasting to everlasting upon them that fear him, and his righteousness unto children's children's, to such as keep his covenant, and to those that remember his commandments to do them. You know, so it says everlasting to everlasting, you know, his righteousness unto children's children, you know, which showed that this covenant was not, you know, it wasn't just something that was active for a little bit and then it wasn't no more. No, this was a lasting covenant that was a constant sign between us and the Most High, which was a constant agreement between us and the Most High, which is why we in the scriptures were still getting punished from going off from that covenant, even years atop of years later. And so, you know, with that example, and with the rainbow, and with Israel being an innumerable multitude, this shows that these covenants were true, and it shows how those covenants work. You know, it shows that those covenants are perpetual. It shows those agreements, you know. So yeah. With that being said, you know, once again, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Bachar Kadash. Again, giving double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who teach the truth of these scriptures. And again, giving peace, love, and salutations unto those of you who are part of those 12 tribes of Israel, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans who are striving for salvation, striving to see a downfall of this kingdom, and the men, women, and children that follow in truth and in sincerity. So with that, I want to say shalom.